situation going on in Iran is that we have more ships headed into the direction of Iran right now, and according to Radio Farda, they're saying that U.S. warships have joined. They've joined up the Fifth Fleet in what appears to be a rotation. But now they're saying a rotation. But what's interesting, Bonnie, is what a lot of people are not aware of is that the British are also sending in their military as well. And so we have both U.S. and British warships that have come into the region there. We already have the USS Abraham Lincoln that's accompanying the vessels in the region there. Of course, its own strike force with that. Now a new fleet coming in, the USS John P. Murtha, which is an amphibious dock landing ship. USS Harper's Ferry have arrived with the Fifth Fleet in the area of that responsibility. So there's a major buildup, and then we're also seeing right now that the United States is very much involved with diplomatic relations across the Middle East. We are seeing whether it be Pompeo, John Bolton, meeting with Israeli counterparts, other Middle Eastern counterparts that are being met with. And normally when you have this type of meetings going on, which some of this is very open to the public, and that is that they're trying to garner up support for a war in the region. And top that off, we have, let's see here, also being reported here on Newsweek, Russia warns U.S. and Israel that Iran is its ally and was right about the shooting down of the drone. That's in the wake of President Trump now putting on sanctions on the leadership, Khomeini. I don't know if it's Rouhani as well. They're putting the sanctions on them, adding those new sanctions. And now Zarif, the foreign minister of Iran, says that this will permanently end any kind of negotiations or dialogue between the United States and Iran. So the tensions are really building up, escalating very rapidly in the region. And again, just for a reminder of the listeners here on Hebrew Nation Radio, where we're speaking at, that is that this whole situation has been escalated by what was told to the public that Iran had just recently bombed or attacked two Japanese tankers at the same time that the President, Mr. Abe from Japan, was meeting with the Khomeini, trying to help bridge the gap between the United States and them, and of course the two ships were attacked. We were being told in the American press that there was a landmine that struck the side of the ship, actually was magnetically placed on there. We were shown all types of photographs, or not photographs, but video footage by the United States that indeed the Iranians had come in there and they were removing one of those landmines off the side of the ship. Now, all the different intel that I have, including right there from the Middle East, right there on the Persian Gulf, intelligence that I was getting from there, is that was all false. And in fact, right from DC itself, I was getting intel to confirm that this was only a cover story, that it was not really, there was no what'd you call it, no sub-attack, there was no landmines, all this was completely fabricated. But at the same time, U.S. intel was saying that the Chinese were working with the Iranians on some advanced technology that is beyond the mitigation of the United States military right now, which some people find that, they think that's really hard to believe. But you know, some of the smartest minds in the world come from the Far East, whether it be Japan or China. Some of the best technology has come from there. So, but this is directly from DC that this information is being told to us here. And at the same time, even like in the video footage that they were showing of the Iranian vessel next to it, one thing I needed to remind people about, in fact, I actually went in depth on Israeli News Live about this issue here, was all the way back starting in May 6th and on May 14th on Israeli News Live, we had reported on our YouTube channel there that there were incidents where the very group, the Mujahideen of Iran, which is supported heavily by John Bolton, had been there. Some of their members had been arrested in Kuwait for purchasing the exact same replica vessels, the water vessels there, the boats that are used by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. They had been caught trying to purchase those boats there. Well, later we got the intel as well from the same source that the United Arab Emirates had been working very closely with Israeli Mossad to train ISIS militants to carry out those attacks in the Persian Gulf. Now, I didn't get any denial either, Bonnie, from DC when I brought this up. There was no denial of these things being true. There was no admission either, so I have to show both sides of this. No admission, no denial. But there, of course, still on the U.S. side, the danger that the U.S. is concerned about is the technology. This is what was not being made public. Something that we were even asked to make public was that the China-Iranian cooperation with this technology, and I'm assuming it as a war technology because Iran was threatening to take out the entire U.S. naval fleet. So we'll see whether or not that's actually going to come to pass or not, if they really have this technology, because from what it looks like right now, we're about to see a major catastrophic war that could happen right in the Middle East there with Iran. And these are some things, too, that I have heard that is a very real possibility. And there are some out there that are even suggesting that if the U.S. does go at it with Iran, that there will be not just a small scale, but a large scale of tactical nukes that would be used in this exchange. And that, of course, especially when we look at Newsweek saying that Russia warns the U.S., U.S. and Israel that Iran is its ally. This could change the balance of what's going on. And then to make matters worse, Zero Hedge is now reporting that NATO, and this is Jens Stoltenberg, the head of the NATO forces there, tells Russia to destroy their new missiles or face consequences. So now Russia's under the threat. And Tyler Durden with Zero Hedge is reporting this, that the new missiles that Russia is deploying violates the 1987 Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, the INF. And that happens to be, according to the article right here, says the United States and its NATO allies want Russia to destroy its 9M729 SSC-8 nuclear-capable cruise missile system, which Moscow has so far refused to do. It denies any violation, of course, of the INF Treaty, but I don't think it really matters about the INF Treaty at this point, because Trump was the first one to announce that the United States would pull out of the INF Treaty, because citing violations of the treaty by Russia. And then, of course, about 6 months later, we have Vladimir Putin also going before his government to also step out of the INF Treaty, pending that the U.S. would return, according to his own statement there. So we're rapidly moving to another, not just an arms race, but with all these threats in every direction there. I think we're about to go beyond just the arms race, and this is not going to be good. By the way, those land cruise missiles do have a range between 300 to 3,400 miles, so that was back during the time when Ronald Reagan was president and Mikhail Gorbachev was president of Russia. And so this could be bad. That's okay. So, dream as far as the USS Lincoln being sunk, is that, Bonnie? That's interesting. You bring that up because there's a person that contacted me in our emails here, and I have not had an opportunity to respond to them as of yet. But they as well have written me about a dream that they had where the USS Abraham Lincoln actually is sunk over there in the Middle East, and this is what will escalate the war in the region. And but what's really sad as well is, could it be sunk because of the technology that Iran has and the boats they're making, or is this going to be something that is done kind of like the Twin Towers to provoke a broader war in the region? Um, there's another article here too I'd share with our listeners. The U.S. intelligence, this is from Sputnik, says military work on secret measures to deter Iran in the Gulf region. And they're citing here that U.S. intelligence and military are developing covert plans aimed at deterring Iran's alleged aggression in the Persian Gulf without plunging the region into a full-scale war. The New York Times newspaper reported, citing former and current officials. They're saying here that the White House has asked the intelligence and the military to come up with countermeasures similar to last week's cyber attack against Iran, as well as with new operations that could be similar to the ones carried out by Tehran itself. They're also saying that the officials did not give any details about the operations that were being considered against Tehran, but according to the New York Times, the deterrent measures may include more cyber attacks, covert destabilizing operations in Iran, actions against Iran's proxies, and operations against Iran's boats that had allegedly carried out the recent attacks on the oil tankers in the region. I find that a little bit interesting because we know who actually did the attack. So does that mean that the United States is going to be willing to target the very ISIS members that they have? I can't say the U.S. did this directly, because I do know that it was the United Arab Emirates, which, by the way, just recently repledged their support to the United States in the battle, whether it be against Iran or any other assets in the region there. I guess the point I want to make here is that we know that. Let me back up just a little bit, Bonnie. Here, the ships, or not the ships, but the speedboats that are being used by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard were purchased by Iran from Sweden. This is where these vessels were made. They normally have machine guns mounted on the bow of these boats here, and this is what they use to chase boats and stuff like that there in the Persian Gulf. And in fact, another thing we might bring to light as well, because we think about this, Sweden actually sells them these vessels, right? Well, Israel is the one that sold Iran the missiles they needed that could carry nuclear warheads. Think about that for a moment. A lot of people don't even think about these things. Well, when it comes down to the U.S. starting this off, and then maybe Mossad picking this up to facilitate taking down Iran, we know, if we go even back to General Wesley Clark, we knew all the nations were going to be taken down. Who was the one that ever spearheaded this idea in the minds of the U.S. military is beyond my understanding at this point right now. But nonetheless, there is a major push for a new world order. And that new world order is not going to go by the wayside anytime soon. They are talking about Jerusalem being the head of the new world order. This is where it will actually be run from. I'm getting reports, Bonnie, because one of the things that me and my wife have spoken on extensively is the Noahide laws, how they're under our U.S. Constitution, things like that. I shouldn't say the U.S. Constitution, but they're in our U.S. laws under the education bill. I think that's 114-12. If I forgive me if I didn't quote that exactly right. But at any rate, this is something that is growing daily, and we're getting reports in that new Chabad organizations are popping up all over the world, especially in Mexico and other places like that where they've never been before, and they're going in and they're training the Messianic believers in those areas under Noahide law principles so that they can enforce this in the near future. So if you take that and we couple in what's happening in the Middle East here, it's almost like a global dominancy. But the sad thing is, what a lot of people are not aware of is that all these nations, I can't speak for Iran in this case, but many nations are in concert with one another to bring about this new world order. And I've even been told that Russia also is playing that part. It's not like that Russia is going to, oh, we'll take up for Iran this week, and we're going to beat up the Americans if they even try to attack. It's not really like that. What's really coming down to the end of the day here is that Russia is also involved in this New World Order project, and Russia is going to play their part. And part of their part in this is dealing with the United States. And it's not that Russia, as far as this New World Order, wants to take and send the U.S. into oblivion with its nuclear weapon capabilities, but it is the fact, and this is just an observation, but it's the fact that the United States, they want to do, I would call it a shock and awe, a large enough attack on this country here that would send fear into the American people. And it could end up escalating more than just a small attack. But let's say they use 3 nukes. This is something that I've been told through intelligence communities, that a limited nuclear strike would happen here in the United States. It would be enough to bring about martial law. It would cause an implosion of society, and then eventually it would also bring about a disarming of the nation, because of course they'll declare martial law. There'll be pandemonium. People will not be able to get food, things like that. Regardless, even if it's an EMP attack. Now, I do know that John Moore, he's a good friend of mine, and John believes that they would not use an EMP attack, but they would use, and he may be right on this, he said they would actually use a cyber attack and take down certain parts of the grid to where they could control it, but yet at the same time, the U.S. people would, it'd still have the same effect, let's put it that way there. And of course, he's got some of the same intel that I do, but just from different sectors there, that there are Russian military, there are Chinese military that are shacking up here in the United States, waiting for the day when the orders are given that, okay, now we have to disarm the nation. Because let's face it, nationalism, whether it be American nationalism, whether it be Russian nationalism, or any other country in the world, is not going to work in a new world order. They want global communism. And then the laws will be set into place. Now, granted, keep in mind, I believe in the coming of Jesus Christ. I believe that Yeshua HaMashiach will actually come and will bring judgment to the world for what they're doing. But what I'm sharing with you is what their plans are, what they're trying to do, because they're trying to bring about an Antichrist spirit. They want a false Messiah. And maybe I shouldn't even say they want a false Messiah, but it's what they believe is the Messiah. And that's what is coming. And so when I look at everything that's going on, Bonnie, in the world today, and I see all these buildup of forces, whether it be against Iran or any other nation. In fact, it's not just Iran. If we think about it, just like General Wesley Clark said, if you really, the whole Middle East is being destroyed, and they're not done. They're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. They didn't stop with Iraq. They're not going to stop with Syria. They're not going to stop. They'll take Lebanon down. They've already dealt with Northern Africa, and they're going back to Northern Africa. I guess Libya didn't get quite done the way they thought it should be done, so they're going to go back. And don't forget, Sudan is in that whole group of nations as well. And so they're dealing with that. Even Russia has their own forces down in that region as well through the Wagner Corporation. So it's a global powder keg, and now we're on the verge of a major escalation of war and tensions there with Iran, and Iran is going to spark off a lot more. We also have in Georgia, south of Russia there, they've got trouble on their border. Now we have this issue with the NATO threatening Russia on Russia's western flank. And now we have even Trump talking about he's going to break the agreements that they've had with Japan since the Second World War. And a lot of people might think it's good. I don't know, because he says we got the short end of the stick, so to speak. But it's just things are changing, and they're changing rapidly. And of course, we've got the Jared Kushner's peace plan with Israel, or with the Palestinians, partial release of that, and the Palestinians already rejecting this. And just from looking at the players involved in that deal there, so all these different Sunni Arab states there, this tells me it's New World Order written all over every bit of it.